Okay, welcome to Wednesday, the 1:30 meeting. You're expecting somebody? Did you want to start with these or what did you want?
Well, I think Doug was going to join us, or Doug Jensen in person, but did you hear anything different from him? Last thing I saw, he was going to join us in person, so we might want to wait a couple minutes if Doug's going to join us for the 2 executive sessions we have.
Okay.
Is he online at all? But okay. Okay. Yeah, we can go ahead and start with the other property acquisition
Okay.
from Mike Moss, Public Services Director.
Good afternoon, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. So I have it's right-of-way easement that has been signed for the Tower Road project for the Edmonds that I'd like to request permission to get the chairman's signature so we can go ahead and record it and get these property owners paid. I mean, it is a very small strip take right in front of their property.
Where was this located again?
This is Tower Road, where the culvert went out and we're replacing that bridge.
It's just from the people that the house got affected
No, this is not from those people. This is from one of the owners on the
on
opposite
the
side.
opposite side?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Do you have what you need from the other people?
Not yet. We're still working.
Yeah, okay. I thought that might be a little bit of a process.
And we'll go ahead and move on to item 2 we have there from Public Works is the admin building. I think an email went out yesterday for some scaffolding that's going on the south side of the building between us and the post office. As you can recall, there was a piece of concrete that fell off the second floor, landed off the facade and cracked in smaller pieces and landed in the grass. I don't know, about 3-4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. We had scaffolding go up this morning. We have a lift also in place. They started the inspection this morning at 11 a.m. They believe what happened is they got water behind the brick and concrete facade and the mud board and starting to loosen that up. So they're doing a full inspection of the south side now. That's why they made a little tunnel that people can walk in and out of. It's closed off now, but at a certain point we'll open up that sidewalk and just have them funnel underneath that tunnel for protection. They have no idea what they're going to run into after. We'll find out after the inspection if it's going to, this one small area or if maybe a larger area on that south wall. So I really have no idea on an estimate. They said they'll give us an estimate and a report early next week. And we'll report back on our Wednesday meeting next week and give you the good news or the bad news. So
basically those chunks of concrete are just held up there with mortar, right?
exactly right.
So how do you inspect that? Just kind of tap on it with a hammer and see if it falls?
Yeah, I didn't go up there with them today, but the professionals are
hang
looking
from
at
it.
it now. So
I can't.
I think they took a masonry person up on the wall, up with them up there today to look at that. So,
We might need a permanent covered porch at that door.
it could be, or it could be, you might be looking at the entire wall, replacing all the concrete and brick on that wall, which would be fairly expensive, but it's especially on a historical building.
Yeah. Ouch.
So we'll give reports out as we know, and also we'll give emails out to staff members here also when we get more information.
So is it just that one wall we're worried about?
Correct, but I think if they look at that wall and see a lot of issues, they're concentrating, of course, on the south wall, but starting at the point where the piece fell off. But if we find multiple locations or on that south wall, I guess we're going to do the east and west also. The north is, of course, is built later date, different material, so it'd be 3 sides of this facility that may have issues. We're crossing our fingers. It's isolated that one spot.
Well, I'm thinking about it on that southeast corner of the air handler at ground level. There's something rattling in there. When I notice it, when I walk by it for the last month, and I've been meaning to say something to somebody, it's either a fan or a bearing or something's clicking away in there. I don't know what it is, but somebody might want to try to figure that out.
We'll get on it. Thank you.
Are we considered a historic building?
Yes, we are.
Do we have funds that you can tap with that?
Is Sean in the room? No.
Sean would know.
We have some resources and the maintenance, some funding, cash balances there that we usually tap into for special projects or emergency projects. This would definitely fall in that category, but yeah, we have some, but not a lot. You know, it's general, probably maintenance, facilities maintenance is a general fund department, so it'd be asking that fund also for some assistance. All right,
Doug's here?
all right,
Okay, so we need to go in executive session, contract negotiations, 10 minutes, real estate purchase lease, 10 minutes.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 1:53.
Okay, we're back from executive session, no decisions rendered. What else you got, Mike? Anything? All
The
right.
last item we have in our miscellaneous, unless you guys have stuff for Public Works, we'd like to turn this over to Building and Planning to visit about private roads.
Okay. It was a calm meeting yesterday. Yeah,
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. I'm here to, I don't know about recommend. Oh, that's a different word. I am bringing forth BPAC's recommendation to move private roads from Public Works under the county engineer to Building and Planning. I have recommendation. They voted on it last night. The members that were there voted 5-0 to move the roads to under Building and Planning. Yeah, I'm hesitant because
Did
still
you
not
give me
volunteering.
the evil eye when they said you want to discuss this? And I looked at Travis and I said, well, you can discuss it if you want, but that's where it's going.
I felt the love.
Then I
Thank you for
ducked-
your confidence
Then
in
I
this,
ducked in
but
case you
yeah.
threw anything.
So I'm here if you guys want to discuss moving that forward or what the board's pleasure would like. What would you like to do?
Well, I think everybody there was in favor of seeing how this would work over there. And we had pretty good selection on that. I mean, we have Travis, of course, is in the septic stuff, and we have people in roads and engineers we
Okay.
have in there. So there's a
Survey.
pretty good group of surveyors. So there's a pretty good group of people, and they all felt it would. I know it places a burden. I get all that, but I think it can be worked through, and
We always find a way.
yeah, they're excited to have that move and have that opportunity to see how it goes. Just from chatting with them, I can tell you that.
I've chatted with all of the members and were all in favor of it prior to that meeting. So
So when this was originally brought up, you asked us to take the time so that you had time to think about it and see how it would affect your department. So you've done that, you feel good about it, and you're ready to roll.
sure. I feel good about it. I have the confidence of the board and I know we can do it.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
So was there some representation or concurrence with this gentleman that, what was it, Mount Solo Road? Was that, Heim?
That was
So-
Lone Oak. I
Lone
believe
Oak?
that was Lone Oak and Stella Road. He's got 2 different projects going on
Okay,
and this could assist him as well.
okay.
Mhm. He and I have spoke this morning and we've exchanged emails. His shift doesn't allow him to, his current shift doesn't allow him to attend the building and planning or the BPAC meetings, so.
Tracy, is this something you just want, you need concurrence with us, or you need a motion? I think it probably has to come to a public
I think
meeting at
it-
some point in time,
I
right?
think the board just needs to direct it to go that way. I have
Okay, because
prosecutor's office in the building.
then
I think we need a motion to move it and then we'll work to do the rest of it.
okay. And it's.
Yeah,
Doug can
motion.
probably,
A motion will work. No.
Okay, that's what
That helps.
that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering.
So we just need a motion to move private roads to building and planning.
Right.
I so move. Put
Okay.
to Grace Tracy with private roads in building and planning.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to move private roads to the Authority of Building and Planning. Any other questions? Let me just see, make sure I got nobody on. I'm not seeing anybody. Okay, we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
We love you. I had something on my mind that just come up with you, Mike. Where was it? I hate when it fleets through. Dang it. I was hoping Sean would be here. He had, and it's been quite a while ago, he talked to us about your wanting to renew a contract with Janice House. Do you know where he's at on that?
I do not know where he's at. I can ask
Okay.
when we get back. I'm meeting with him this afternoon, but yeah.
And then he gave us this information because we said, well, we don't even know what Janice House
How
does.
big, correct.
I know the houses, they're right by the coroner's office there,
Yeah.
but. And I was going through my stack of stuff and I said, I wonder where we're at on that, so.
I'll find out. I don't know if he's got anything to legal yet or still working on it internally.
I think we asked him to pull up the old contracts, and if I remember, I did get an email from
Did-
him.
did
saying
you
that
see
he went
one?
through those contracts, yeah. And then because we were concerned with making sure that we're not gifted and that kind of stuff. And he did go through them and say we were okay.
Okay.
I remember, right?
As soon as you leave, it'll pop back into my head.
I could sit here for 10 minutes.
No, that's fine.
You guys have a 2:30 also, correct?
Yeah, we got Gina coming in
Okay.
with opioids.
Well, I'll be around all afternoon in case you think of it. give me a
Yeah,
call.
it can happen to me walking from one room to another.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Okay,
They keep associating that with old age, I think, but I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either, Steve.
How much time do we have before Gina comes in?
20 minutes.
About 20 minutes.
Oh. Well, I'll bring this up now then, so we have a little bit of time. We've been, you guys know, we've been having our staff meetings with department heads and other electeds. We're doing those on Wednesdays, and Kathy thought it would be a good idea to get everybody together and have a budget meeting with all the department heads. Some of the ideas that have come out of the meetings that we've had, we realized that not all of the department heads and or electeds, not throwing anybody under the bus, but not everybody has an understanding of the budgets and how they work. And there were some ideas that were thrown out that were, some people thought, oh, I didn't know that that's how that works. So Kathy would like to have a budget meeting with all the department heads here in the, I don't know, is it called the general meeting room?
Across the hall.
Across the hall, yeah. And so before we have that, I thought it would be a good idea, and I wanted to run this by you guys, to get the department heads and everybody together, outside of this and have a meeting. We've really had a lot of good communication and accountability, with them on some of the departments and the leadership aspects, and really, being able to talk to them about, what they need in their departments and being able to do their jobs better. Mike, and you guys have attended a couple of them. If you want to speak up, you can. But I wanted to talk to you guys about going to the Mount St. Helens Institute, taking 2 different groups up there to have like a leadership retreat prior to our budget meeting, just to get everybody on the same page, working together, communicating together. That was one of the things that we heard on the campaign trail frequently from the department heads as I spoke with them. I don't know, I'm not gonna speak for you, Steve, but better communication amongst themselves. They feel that they have been siloed. So getting them working together, I think would be a step in the right direction with regards to our budget, working together, bringing them together to come up with solutions to our budgets, in the shortfalls that we've got. So wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were on that.
Well, you'll probably disagree with my thoughts. I think that stuff, I've been watching for 40 years. Here's what's gonna come out of your budget meeting. We can't afford to lose anybody. There's nothing we can cut. Number two, we always have the ability to raise taxes. It should be paid for the services we do. And that's what I think. We tried monthly meetings. How many people would show up to those things? Less than a handful. Then we tried quarterly meetings with the group over in the GMR, and it just turned into, I'll be kind about it, grump sessions. I'm not gonna tell one commissioner what to do. I don't want decisions made for the whole commissioners. But if one commissioner wants to do something, I'm not gonna tell them what they can and can't do. But then I don't want to be told what I can and can't do either. It hadn't been my experience in 40 years that I've been to all these type of, whatever you want to call them, kumbaya is what I call them. And I just never gravitate to those people. I just want people that come and do their job. I think my job is to be respectful and to be fair. Other than that, I just expect you to do your job. I can tell you, the executive teams I sit on, it's usually people that just come and do their work and get after it. So I'm not, I don't know what they're gonna offer us in a budget. That's probably our primary purpose here is the budget. And I don't know what they're gonna tell me. That we have meetings all year long. They're in sometimes quarterly or monthly, and we talk to them about their parts. If Kathy wants to have a meeting, I don't care. I guess where I draw the line, if it starts affecting the work we do, then I'll speak up. I just don't, I know you believe in it, Stephen. I know other people do. I just don't. I think all that crap where you catch me and all that kind of nonsense just drives me insane.
Well, I will say that I do agree with you on the Pareto principle in that 80% of the work gets done by 20% of the people, no matter what we do. And
Yep.
that is a fact. I do agree with that. But I feel like, if we can, the budget situation that we're facing right now, I really feel like if we can come together, the department heads know, better than we do what they can and can't do within their departments. And I think just the sharing of ideas, because I really do believe there are people who don't know how the budgets work. I need to learn more about the budget myself. But like I said, some of the things that we've talked about and shared, some of the department heads were, like, wow, I didn't know that we could do that's how that worked. And so I think having clear communication, as a group, we would benefit from it. It's not more of I do get the kumbaya thing quite a bit, and it's not, I really don't think that it's that. I think it's more communicating and holding each other accountable, and brainstorming, ideas to solve some of the issues that we're facing.
So I guess I would ask, besides just understanding how the budget works, is there an ultimate goal, once they understand how the budget works, for them to come away with a limited amount of increase or a budget cut, or what the ultimate goal is? That's one question I got, but the other one is I think you said you're talking about two different groups. How did you decide to divide those groups up, and who gets to go on what day?
So the meetings that we've been having on Wednesdays, we've been doing it based on crossover of departments, that are working together.
Okay,
And we've had some pretty good, I'd say our attendance is pretty good. I mean, we have the rooms full when we have them. And so what we did was, there is a little bit of crossover between those groups, so we just carried it over. The groups that work with each other, that group would go one day, and then we split it up that way based on what their responsibilities are within the county. And the other thing really is as far as the goal, I would say is just to get to the point to where we're able to share ideas on the budget, what we can do to cut, because I don't think saying everybody needs to cut 5% is a way to do it, because some budgets can take 5%, 5% of one budget is far greater than 5% of another. So to come up with an individual plan on how we can impact our budgets with the situation that we're in is really what I wanted to do, is have that conversation with everybody in the room. Because I've noticed that the couple meetings that we have had, some of the ideas that are getting thrown around, they're good conversations, and actually we could probably make a difference in the way that we're spending money within the budget. So that's the goal, is just to see how we can come up with ideas and to implement those within the departments as far as our budgets are concerned.
So is this gonna be, would this be all department heads, or is it gonna be, if the department head can't go, or they send in somebody else?
Yeah,
What kind of a cost are we talking to do this?
$600 per day, $1,200. We're not doing lunches. It's not being catered. We're asking people to take their own lunch, since we're talking about saving money.
I guess I'm curious on, when you talk about having meetings and not everybody shows up. So obviously there weren't mandatory participation to get together meetings. So people,
They were started based on, it started actually before my time, but they were started based on the request of staff is what I understood. So we'd hold them every month. They were held in here because the three of us had to be in here. And I think I was part of two of them, and you never even got a handful of people that would participate. And why are we spending this time if people don't really want to participate? And then we did a quarterly where we would take turns, we'd rotate the commissioners and sit with them over there. And I did that once. I don't know if Commissioner Weber ever did it. Yeah. That was pretty much just gripe sessions.
Well, we've had pretty good attendance and I would say participation in the ones that we've had. Thus far, we've had 6 of them, and they've worked out well, but
And what are we gonna gain out of it? What are the tangible stuff we're gonna see?
Well,
I've done it for 40 years and never seen that.
yeah. In my dealings with, when we would go in and consult with companies and management teams, one of the things that we found 9 times out of 10, that the biggest issue that they had was communication, miscommunication and lack of communication.
Yeah.
And so
in
if
every
we could,
survey I've ever seen.
what's that?
It's been in every survey I've ever seen.
Yeah, and so I feel like if we could do something to improve the communication amongst the department heads and ourselves, because there are things I'm sure that they don't want to talk about in public,
well, I'm all for improving communication, but the other thing that you said, I guess, that bothers me is how many department heads that don't understand the budget or how it works. I believe that's what you said. There's people that don't understand the budget process. And if that's the case, I guess that bothers me a lot, especially when your department head that's running a department has no idea how the
Yeah,
budget
well,
process works.
So let me rephrase that. I don't want to say they don't have any idea how it works, but there are some department heads that understand the budget far greater than others, have a better understanding of how it works and the implications of doing certain things and not doing them.
So in order to promote a better understanding of that process, who's going to lead that discussion? Is that going to be Kathy? Is that going to be?
Kathy, when we have our meeting in the general meeting room, we've talked about her. She's going to run that and go over budgets in depth. Yeah. that'll be a learning opportunity for me too. To sit in and have her go over it.
So is this something that the department heads are in favor of doing? I mean, feedback wise, you're getting a good, an indication that they're willing to do it?
Yes. And the ones that have said that they have conferences have already asked their deputies, and their deputies have said they will go.
Well, I guess on a one-time basis, I got no problems with you trying it and seeing how it turns out.
Yeah, I'm definitely not one for wasting my time either. If it's something that we see, doesn't work moving forward, then my time is valuable. But I do feel that it's worth it.
The only thing I would ask that I've tried to do before is if we do something that's gonna affect this body from meeting or doing its function, then that needs to be run through us as a three-man decision. It's not I don't make that decision. Not one of us makes that decision. That's the only thing I'd ask that we be cognizant of.
Yeah.
Well, at least I think that's where we're at right now, right? Is, the meetings have gone on. It sounds to me like it's been a good function to this point. Now that it's gonna cost us some $1,200, that's where we're at, make a decision on whether to go forward with that or not. And for the sounds of things, I got no issue with doing it. I wanna know what the results are though, very much so.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, you guys will outvote me on that, but that's fine. I'm not a fan of spending the money for it, but
okay.
it's okay. At least it was brought forth and discussed. So we got probably 5 minutes,
Looks that way.
maybe take well, I don't want to start before 2:30 because I know I've had some people express interest, so why don't we just recess till the 2:30 so everybody has a chance to come in? Good with that? Okay. Back recess, we'll head into our 2 Thursday and we got our 2:30 Wednesday, sorry. We got Gina, Human Health Services. I'll let you kick it off.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Gina James, Health and Human Services. So we're going to talk about a couple things today. Opioid settlement funding, we'll talk about first, and then we have some state contracts that I wanted to just kind of give some updates and information on that we see every year this time of year. So we'll get into that after our opioid discussion. So the opioid settlement, I wanted to just give a little bit of background for the newer commissioners. Not sure how long I can call you new. Is it maybe a year? I don't know. 4 years, maybe. So a few years back, the state of Washington started entering, the Attorney General's office started getting into suing pharmaceutical and distributor companies for their part in opioid prescribing and distributing. Those lawsuits were successful when their settlement funding started coming back to the state of Washington. States entered into agreements and all Washington jurisdictions were given the choice to enter into these agreements to receive the funding. So Cowlitz County entered into that agreement. It's called the One Washington Memorandum of Understanding. So we chose to be participants in that in order to receive the opioid settlement funding. It's a formula base on population and opioid use prevalence. Not all cities receive this funding. Again, it goes back to population. So if a a city doesn't reach that threshold, I don't know exactly what that threshold is, then they don't receive it. So for Cowlitz County, we receive opioid settlement funding. The city of Longview receives some, and the city of Kelso receives some. So that's where our jurisdictions were eligible and chose to participate in this funding. So we've given kind of some summaries before, but just as an update, we so far, as of through May, we've received revenue of a little over $2.7 million from those settlements that have come to us. It's been a couple different settlements. I'm not sure what settlements may still be out there waiting to be settled. So I'm not really sure what that looks like for future revenue. Our total expenditure is a little over 30,000 so far. And so what we have currently available is right at 2.7 million. In that memorandum of understanding, there's a full list of allowable uses. I know that's part of what we wanted to talk about today. There's the initial agreement, let's see, there's about 17 pages of information about what you can use the funding for. The agreement says there's core strategies, and it hints at prioritizing those core strategies. So that's what we'll kind of talk about first. And then there's all other items, allowable uses. So what I have here is just kind of a list of what those core strategies are that are identified in the agreement. So you can see it kind of varies. There's a focus on naloxone. You'll see a focus on pregnant postpartum women, expanding treatment, treatment for incarcerated populations, prevention programs, syringe exchange programs. So those are the core strategies that are identified in the agreement. Again, and it says the priority should be given to those types of activities, but then it has a whole slew of other allowable uses as well. So it's on the next slide.
But can we go
Yeah.
back to H? Can you
Mhm.
explain what expanding syringe services is?
So let me see if there's some additional information here. Let's see. So it says provide comprehensive syringe service programs with more wraparound services, including linkage to opioid use disorder treatment, access to sterile syringes, and linkage to care and treatment of infectious disease. So I'm guessing it would be something like if you had a syringe exchange program that, you know, only did the exchange and there weren't any other services that went along with it, it would maybe be to enhance those services that go along with that program. The wraparound services and linking to care.
Okay.
Or if a community didn't have a program and they wanted to have one, they would probably allow that through this funding.
The other thing that may be worth and it's been a while since we signed that contract. I'm trying to remember back. We're not like standalone. It's because if somebody aren't we part of a group? We had to be with Wahkiakum and Grays and I think all that.
Yes.
And first they wanted a designated body to handle it for everybody, but we were able to have the entities do it themselves. But if there's a question on how you've used the money and somebody complains, then there's a dynamic for the
Mhm.
group to decide if you're right or wrong. That's kind of the check balance that I remember.
Yes, so that's
Okay.
called the Opioid Abatement Council.
Okay.
So in the memorandum of understanding, the state they assigned regions. So the regions have to decide who they wanted to sort of participate with each other with. So in our region, we are joined with both of our cities, Grays Harbor, Pacific County, and nope, that might be it. So we have each region who participates with each other agree to, you have to have an opioid abatement council. So this council has to, as part of the agreement, has to meet at a minimum of once a year to review expenditures from the settlement funding for the jurisdictions. That group doesn't have to approve anything ahead of time. So, we can still decide what we want to spend the money on. It's not an approval kind of body, but it is a kind of a check system, and it is a platform that if somebody were concerned about how somebody was spending the money or didn't think it was an allowable use, they could take it to that council and say, hey, they basically file a complaint, and then that council would meet and kind of run through that. Yeah. So there is that system set up. The county is sort of the lead on that. So we set the meetings. We have a landing page on our website where that's part of one of the requirements in the agreement too, that we post expenditure information for the public. And so we have that posted for each of the jurisdictions that we're partnered with. Just a landing page on our website for that. Yeah.
So that's a completely separate entity than Gerbo and the ASO. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, I wouldn't call it an entity. It's just a group. It's one person from each participating jurisdiction in our region who gets together at minimum of one time a year.
Our legal counsel helped us try and keep that as minimally invasive as possible.
Yes. The counties did have kind of a decision to make in the beginning about how they wanted to move forward with engaging with the funding. So it could have gone to Gerbo, for example, or you could have partnered in other ways. You could have chosen to let somebody else administer your funding. So we chose, and a lot of the jurisdictions we're partnered with kind of had a similar mindset where we wanted to keep as much local decision-making, as much local control as possible. Yes, so the expanded list of allowable uses or approved uses, they kind of break it out into 3 different parts. So part 1 is treatment, to treat opioid use disorder, support people in treatment and recovery, connect people who need help to the help they need, address the needs of criminal justice involved persons, and address the needs of pregnant and parenting women and their families with neonatal abstinence syndrome. So there's a big focus on treatment. There's also part 2 is prevention, preventing overprescribing, supporting appropriate prescribing and dispensing of opioids, prevent misuse of opioids, and prevent overdose deaths and other harms. And then part 3 is kind of this other category where they briefly list off a couple of other strategies involving first responders, some like leadership planning and coordination type work that some communities might want to engage in, and then training and research. The document, the full list that I sent earlier today kind of gives examples under each of those of some different strategies. So it goes into more detail about what you can do with the funding. We as a county have not had a full discussion about how we want to move forward with it in terms of, would we want to consider issuing an RFP and getting proposals from community partners, or would we want to look at identifying a specific need and and pursuing a really specific idea about, treatment or preventing opioid deaths or something like that. Or, wait and just kind of hear what the community wants to say or how the community wants to engage. We have gotten I just last month, I got an inquiry from someone interested in some of this settlement money. Who was it from? It was from North County EMS, who was interested in seeing if they might be eligible to get some of this funding. So we may see more of those requests, but that's really the first one we've gotten around the settlement funding.
In spirit of full disclosure, previous commission is kind of, already maybe is too strong a word, but we've kind of protected it because we've had the idea we were trying to pursue maybe a facility for teens or underage adults. So, but that's been a real struggle getting apart with that. But I just, so we haven't been real active in pursuing, and that's probably on us, or I'm the last one here from that, but it was on us, yeah.
So you get all the blame. No. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and it seems like it has slowed down recently, but for the first year or two, it was, one settlement after another finalizing and coming
Yeah.
in. So it seemed like for, at least a good year, it was just one after another started just rolling in. So, I mean, there's probably good reason to just kind of pause and wait.
well, that's true too, because there was some stuff out there that you heard that there was maybe more coming, and we really didn't know the full scope of what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But I think that, this is a good discussion point for all of us to decide what kind of projects do we want to see. I mean, yeah, I tend to gravitate towards tangible stuff that I can physically see and see that it's making a difference in those type of things, versus paying salaries for somebody to administer needles or something like,
Mhm.
just picking one out of there. I'm not picking on the needles. I'm just picking one out of there. But I think that's a discussion I think the three of us have to kind of engage in as to what, if we're gonna if we ask Gina, okay, this money's piling up, we should put it to worse. What kind of projects do we wanna see? And I think that's a good discussion for our public to have with us also.
Yeah.
And the use of those funds have to be tied to those core strategies somehow.
They do have to be tied to these approved uses. Yes. Yeah.
They do kind of open up when you get into this other, like under Matt, there's an education piece. I mean, when you get into the individuals, it kind of opens up some areas too, to a little bit broader than
Yeah.
the line item.
Yes, it does broaden up. Once you start reading more of the examples they give here and the different ideas, it does start opening up, really at the core of it, there has to be a strong linkage to opioid use disorder. So
Yeah,
it has to be something that is working around that, either treatment, prevention, some type of service specific to opioid use disorder.
yeah.
Yeah, so I know, like I said, we haven't had any decisions about how to move forward, and I'm not asking for one today, just to start the conversation, maybe get you thinking a little bit more about
Yeah.
how you might want to see this move forward. Like I said, we can continue just letting it come in and providing updates and go from there. So,
I
Do
see
we
we
have-
have some public here. Are you interested in weighing on things you'd like to see?
Do we have any information on, like, what are the top 3 reasons that opioids are prescribed?
I don't have any information on that, but I could see if I could get that.
I mean, I can understand solving the problem after the fact, but we're treating the symptoms. But
Yeah.
if, just out of curiosity, I'd like to know what the top reasons are that
Yeah,
they're prescribed to begin with.
Sure, like
Sure.
the top 3. Okay.
it is a public meeting. Jennifer, did you want to have a comment? You're certainly welcome to.
Jennifer Leach with WSU Extension here in Cowlitz County. So, and thank you for letting me know that you guys had a meeting yesterday when we all had individual conversations. I'll make sure I'll clear for the record, okay? So, I think I would suggest a process so that make sure you're making the right decisions, is to possibly put together a subcommittee and give them so much time, don't let them plan forever, okay? To really maybe have some treatment providers at the table, prevention providers, and, where they kind of represent those core strategies. One might also be the coroner, and come up with what they're seeing in the community, and also look at some of the data. I think Commissioner Farrell, good statement is why is this occurring? So looking at some of the data and then coming forward with a recommendation for you as the ones that have to make the decision. And I think a process, I would really encourage an RFP, request for proposals, and you guys can design it the way you want. But I think it's really important that, of course, I'm always honing in on evidence-based practices, is whatever strategies you use, is that if you're going to do a grant or funding, is they need to show what they're going to do. What are their performance objectives? What's their evaluation, so that it's a quality program that's been proven to be effective. So, and also an opportunity to be somewhat long-term. I mean, not forever, but I think if a proposal comes forward, 1 year of funding, by the time you figure it out, those would be some of the recommendations. Have a process in place. Invite some people to the table to help with that process, and then obviously bring the recommendation back to you as the electeds to help direct Health and Human Services for the next step. So those are some thoughts. And I'd be willing to be on a subcommittee, because I've been doing this stuff for a while. Okay, yeah, for a while. Yeah.
Thank you.
My first question is there additional funding beyond the 2.7 million that will be coming in?
There is one of the settlement agreements has funding coming in for a 15 or 17-year period. And so there's a little bit coming in until 2038 that we're aware of. I'm not sure if other settlements might be lined out like that as well, but there's one in particular that has funding coming each year for the next 15 to 17 years.
How much is that? A
Um,
yearly?
yes, so it looks like about 400,000 a year, and then it kind of starts tapering down to 200,000 by the end.
Yeah.
You can have this if you want. It shows the
Oh,
over
okay.
the
Total-
years. It's on our
total-
website.
Total anticipated, this is from a document you actually gave us in April.
Mm-hmm.
Total anticipated payouts, and like Gina said, it's over time. Total, would that be under the anticipated or the revenue received? Anticipated is 7,699,067.
Oh, okay. When is it? Oh,
But it'll take, like she said, on some of those, I think they're 15 years that you get so much a year.
when is the 2,000,007 available?
That's right now.
That's what we have right now.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. So I really liked what you were saying about forming some kind of a group. It would have to have a timeline that starts here and ends here, and hopefully it wouldn't be too long. But from expertise in it, as well as a recovering addict or whatever, make sure we get a balance of those involved. I'd really like to see a facility. I really encourage us to look at a facility that will be there. It isn't going to just be coming and going. And this ongoing funding could maybe help with that long-term use of a facility. I know we all know that we need one in our community, so that's my support. And I think we really need to focus on prevention, of course, but I don't know how to break that up in that. I think that's how that committee could help us look at priorities and see what money could be used for what. But I think it's a wonderful opportunity, so thank you.
Anything else?
No.
I think you're right. Let's just keep it in front. I'm not chair of, the Board of Health, but it might be a good conversation. We talk with Kelly about repeating this conversation in a Board of Health meeting.
Sure, yep,
Yeah.
yeah. And I may circle back with you on regarding the request we just got. I still need to kind of sort through it a little bit and determine, I might get legal's help in determining if it would be a fit for this. So I might circle back with you on that request.
So, and to be clear, even though you don't have an RFP out, if somebody approaches you, we will look at.
So not my call, but
Yeah.
I think,
I'm not trying to open up floodgates here.
yeah, so we've done it both ways in the past where, so I think our purchasing policy outlines a RFP process to
Okay.
work through. I think the board also has some discretion there about whether to stick with that or make individual decisions. So.
Gina, do we receive other funding that would cross over into this to add more money to it that we could, if they broaden the ability to use it for X, Y, and Z, is there other funding that we receive that we might be able to, build upon this or this build upon something else?
So there's the criminal justice treatment account funding that ties in. It's a similar use in that sense. Some similar overlap with allowable uses, I guess I should say.
But that's not derived from the 1/10
Mm-mm.
of the 1% that they just passed, right? That's something that we get.
No. Yeah, that is not from that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a contract we get from the state, which is on the agenda for later today.
How about foundation funding? What do you need that? Because I know we're
So-
always sending a ton back there. I don't know if anything would qualify there.
The FPHS funding may be something to look at. That particular, we'll have to tie that one into expanding health services. And so we start getting into what's allowable here, and looking at overall what we're trying to do. So that might be something that we could look at as well. So.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth having a conversation because
Yeah.
it might change our decision making if we look at it from, oh, we don't just have this, we also have this that we can, mesh
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
I always wonder about doc recording fees too, I know it's a housing type thing, but some of this would be putting.
Yeah.
eh,
Yeah, I mean, it
some-
does, they
there's
do start,
Commissioner Rader's point, I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea. There's
they
some gray
do
areas.
definitely start overlapping. Like, we could use document recording fees to house individuals in drug court. Opioid funding could probably also house individuals in drug court and support, some supportive services, that type of thing. So there's definitely some overlap with funding sources and what you can use it for, as long as we're on top of what each funding source can do and making sure that we're keeping that alignment with the funding source.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Okay.
Let you move forward.
Okay, next topic. So it's that time of year where we have state contracts that will come to us for consideration of renewal. So we have some contracts that are each fiscal year. We have a couple that are on a biennium cycle. So the ones we'll talk about today briefly are our developmental disabilities contract, our community development block grant, criminal justice treatment account, and our consolidated homeless grant. I don't necessarily need any decisions today. We're mostly just providing information, some updates, what we know about what to expect for the next fiscal year, some timelines, things like that. So I just wanted to get some information out there Also gives you time if you have questions or need more information from me, you can let me know before we see these, we'll see these contracts, all of them in a future BOCC Tuesday meeting, so. None of these are new contracts. These are all contracts the county has participated in for a number of years. Okay, so developmental disabilities contract. This contract we have, it provides for adult employment and day programs as well as child development services. It is specific to individuals that have a developmental disability diagnosis. That doesn't apply to the child development services. That's just for the adult piece. When we look at the statute for what that means, it's a disability attributable to intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autism, or another neurological condition that requires treatment and is expected to continue indefinitely. In order to be eligible for these services, an individual has to have this diagnosis prior to the age of 18 and that's where they're looking at, their review medical information, determine that it's expected to continue indefinitely, so they become eligible for the services prior to 18. These particular programs, the adult employment and day programs, individuals start at age 21 is when, and it's 21 because they're in school until that age typically. And so once they're done with school, hopefully they transition out and can receive some support services. We have a big focus on employment because we want individuals to know that they can work after high school. So we'll try to skip the couch potato year for everybody and get them out and getting jobs. So that's a big part of this program is the employment piece. So we're really focused on that and proud of that work. So what you see on the screen in the chart is our providers that we have worked with for the adult employment and day programs, Goodwill, Compass, LifeWorks, and Employers Overload. The numbers there are the number of clients that they serve in the program. So there's supported employment and then there's community inclusion. Community inclusion is the day program. That program is not necessarily employment-based. It's about connecting with your community and getting involved in activities in the community. Like you or I would go to the bowling alley because we like the bowling alley, we enjoy bowling, and we connect with people there. This program has that same focus as being able to provide some support so that individuals can go out and do those same types of activities with their community like you or I would. The percentage you see there, the percent employed, is the number of individuals who are in supported employment and who are currently working. So right now we're at 84% employed, which is really amazing. The statewide average typically hovers around 60-62% employed. And I will say that's probably the highest it's been for us in Cowlitz County since I've been here. So I'm really excited about that. It will go down. So if we don't hold me to keeping it to that. It can change depending on jobs.
You set the bar.
I know. It can change a lot just depending on the services, the clients, finding jobs, losing jobs, that kind of thing. So the total number of adults that I have there, the 155 individuals, that's the number of adults we currently have in program. If you add up the supported employment, the 79, and the community inclusion 101, it does not equal 155. And the reason that is because individuals can be in both programs. That was a change in the last couple of years. It used to be they had to pick one or the other, and now they can be in both. So that's another reason why we're seeing our contract total go up a little bit, is because individuals can now be in both programs instead of picking one or the other.
Refresh me, does this include kids that are still in school? I know that in schools there, they have a couple programs that help them. So those would be additional numbers? That once they reach the 21, then they kind of
Yes. So
kick over to
these,
this?
yes, so these are adults in that 21 and over. There's a little bit of work that we do with those transition age students where they're getting ready to come out. So we are able to start working with them a little bit and just helping to get them connected with an employment provider and do some kind of job readiness work. Not to overlap we do have some great programs in the community. So we're not overlapping. We're just kind of coordinating and engaging to help make sure that they continue on that path of employment and transition kind of seamlessly from school to the adult services. But
You see a lot transfer? I mean, is it a high percentage that just keep going or?
it's increasing a little bit. We don't, we've just started in the last couple years really looking at those numbers. So we, at any given year may have, 5 students coming out who we know are DDA eligible. It could be as many as 12. It kind of varies year to year depending on the students. So yes, but our goal is to try to make sure that all of those students, that they're connected if they want to, and that we encourage employment. Yeah.
So Gina, at that awards banquet that you were at, are we seeing more kids involved in that program? Is that one of the things that you would attribute the higher number to? Because that place was packed, and from what I understand, that's like the most people that you guys have had at one of those. And there was a lot of vendors, so it seems like we have a lot of people that are providing services to that group of our society. But is the number of kids that are in that program, is that growing, from the bottom up?
I don't know. That particular event, there was, adults were invited to that event as well. So it was adults. There were also students there. There has been more focus the last few years, I think from the statewide level as well, about making sure that there's connection with those students and encouraging it, and encouraging schools to do more work around job readiness and encouraging that as well. So I think we've seen a little bit more focus on that in the last few years. So I hope that we don't miss any students who might be eligible and just nobody knows about it. I think with the push here in the last few years and just getting more, there's been a lot more community collaboration around what that looks like and sort of who's doing what and what pieces people can do to help make sure that that transition happens for students.
Are we seeing more employers join in on this program to hire people that are coming out of the program?
Yeah, I think we do actually. When I'm done with this slide, my next slide is one of my favorite ones. So we'll get to that in just a minute. So just to wrap up to the other piece to this is the Child Development Services, where we work with the Progress Center. They have a blended funding model. So the children that receive services there, the Progress Center bills insurance or other funding before they bill us for services. And so that's why you kind of see 2 different numbers there. On average, we receive billing for about 137 children, but they have over 300 enrolled in their program. So because of the other funding, they're able to bill that out. So they provide services to help make sure that children are, if there's an identified potential developmental disability, that they can get connected with services. The Progress Center works with the family and in the home as much as they can to just help provide support, resources, information about what folks can do at home with their kids to help get them on the best path moving forward and transition into preschool or kindergarten, whatever the next step is. So I mentioned our contract amounts. So I just showed you there the fiscal year 25 amount was about 2.5 million. Our estimated award for 26 is right at 3 million. Again, I think that difference there is mostly because we're still seeing additional individuals participate in both of the adult programs where before they had to choose one. Our budget for this funding is determined on an individual basis. So the state literally looks at every client who's eligible, what their acuity is. It can either be low, medium, or high acuity. That level determines the number of support hours that they're eligible for. It can be anywhere from 6 hours a month to 26 hours a month, depending on the level of support that is determined the individual needs. And then there's funding connected to that. And so that's how the budget comes to us. We do a similar process with the providers when we determine their budget. We sometimes do really good and we sometimes are off a little bit. So that's why we see amendments towards the end of the year occasionally, because clients have moved or things have changed. Service hours change sometimes too, so. Okay, so next slide. This is my favorite one. So these are all the businesses in town that currently have a supported employee hired. I think it's about 53 local businesses. And as you can see, it's in everything in between the smaller mom and pops places, lots of churches to large, Peace Health is on there. So these are all our local businesses that have hired a supported employee this year. So really great to see. And I think it's the highest I've seen. As you asked about, is this increasing? I think this is the highest number of businesses that I've seen that have engaged in this. So if I looked at it over time, the list would be much longer because businesses come and go, but it's really great to have these businesses involved this way and being more active and hiring people. So one of these days, we may see Cowlitz
Awesome.
County on there.
Yeah, I know. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, okay. Any questions on developmental disabilities before I move on? We don't yet have a state contract. I anticipate that hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll start working on our pass-through contracts. Okay. Okay, Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. So we receive this grant every year. It comes to us from the Department of Commerce. It is federal funding, so it comes from the federal level to the state to non-entitlement counties, which is what we're called. There are some local jurisdictions that also receive this funding, but they receive it directly from the federal government. So the city of Longview is considered an entitlement community. So they receive this same funding, but directly from the federal government. So because of that, anything we do with this funding can't be used in the city of Longview. So that's a weird stipulation. So we have that to be aware of. It is required to pass through to community action agencies. That's a federal stipulation on this funding. So our local community action agency is Lower Columbia CAP. So it is required to pass through to them.
Can you just back up for a second?
Yeah.
So we directly receive these fundings from the federal government because we are an unentitled county,
We receive it from the state.
the
The
state?
state receives it from the federal government.
Okay.
We're called non-entitlement county. So the city is considered an entitlement county, and I'm sure it's based on population or what have you. So they're eligible to receive the funding directly.
And then the next statement that you made was, we cannot give those funds to Longview?
We can't use the funds in the city of Longview.
Oh, within the city of Longview?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some ways to try to work. If we had a program, for example, that were, their hub were in the city of Longview, but if they provided the bulk of their services and could demonstrate the bulk of their services happened to residents outside of the city of Longview, there's some language about, working around with that. So, but we have historically used these funds for the Meals on Wheels program that CAP does, which they serve countywide and Wahkiakum County with their Meals on Wheels program. But our funding is only used for the meals provided to residents outside of the city of Longview. So it's kind of a odd one, but it's because they get their own funding, we can't use it in the city, so. So our fiscal year 25 allocation was 66,000. What we've seen as an estimated award for fiscal year 26 is 70,000. So I'm just gonna throw this out there. The state has said we're moving forward, status quo, everything as is for now. There's been some conversation, I think, at the federal level. CDBG, I think, was getting looked at as a potential cut. And so from what I know, there hasn't been any decisions about that. The state did say they wouldn't be issuing contracts until at least August, if not September. So I'm guessing they're waiting to kind of see if there's more information about the federal budget. So just a note on that. That's why some of our timelines are a little bit pushed back. So we typically do a public hearing to engage in the new grant. We have to close out the current grant and then sort of submit for our new grant. So we'll aim to do that public hearing probably towards the end of July for that piece of it. And then, as I mentioned, the state estimated sending contracts out in August or September for that.
Yeah, it might be interesting to see what happens. 'Cause I saw a figure where the state of Washington depends on about 34, almost 35% of its budget from the Fed. So other states aren't that high. So I'd be curious if any of that bleeds down. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'd be curious.
Yeah, I don't know either. We'll keep our eye on it best we can, but yeah, that's what the state said. So they said we're moving forward as is right now, and they'll let us know if they know something. So
So on these funds cannot go to the city of Longview, or we can't use them in Longview,
right,
but we give it to CAP?
yes.
And they can service in Longview?
So they use the county funding to serve residents outside the city of Longview. So they provide meals to all the way down from, Woodland to Riderwood. And so that's what they'll use the county funding for. They do receive the same funding from the city of Longview, and they use that funding to serve the residents in the city.
And Longview is the only city that falls into the entitlement category?
In our jurisdiction,
In our
yes.
county,
Yep,
good.
yep, yep. Like I said, I'm sure it's based on population. If you're over a certain size, you probably can be considered an entitlement community.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that one before I move on? No? Yeah.
Well, it may be worthy to note that a lot of these contracts, we choose to be the conduit. We don't have to be. We choose to be the conduit because then it comes and people get a chance to see where it goes.
Mhm.
And on a lot of them, the funding would end up where they want it to go anyway. We just wouldn't see it.
Yeah, yes, I did mean to mention that earlier. With a lot of these, it's, the state will make sure that these funds get passed down, whether that's through the county or asking another neighboring county to administer it in our county, or doing, finding a local agency to administer it. So, yeah. Okay. Criminal Justice Treatment Account. So this is funding that's set aside in the state budget. There's a state statute that kind of outlines this particular funding. It's to be used only for substance use, disorder treatment, and treatment support services for individuals in the criminal legal system. It's most of the funding that comes in this is specific to providing those services for drug court participants. Counties have right of first refusal, so I'm glad this came up yesterday. I don't know if the full board received a notice or just Commissioner Rader, but there was the Healthcare Authority, which is where this contract comes from, sent a notice about needing to confirm with counties if they still want to engage and allocate this funding, or if they wanted to give the funding to the administrative service organization, which for us would be Great Rivers. It sounds like they're asking for a response by June 20th, just to confirm what our county wants to do with that. So I just wanted to mention that here. I'm guessing we'll continue to allocate the funding. But that's one decision point. That's the only decision I'm asking for today.
So if we say, yeah, we'll still administer that, then you send in the paperwork, or we send in the paperwork?
So I didn't get the notice. I think, like I said, I know
Well,
Commissioner
I think
Rader got it.
Probably came to all three of us.
Okay. So I'm happy to send a response. They'll take it from me. Just say we've decided to continue to allocate this funding from our county.
So does this mean that when they give us this funding, do we then funnel it to Great Rivers? Or are we just saying that we're administering these funds within our county?
Yes, that's what we have been doing. And that's the question they're asking is, do you still want to administer these funds yourself? Or do you want to turn the contract over to Great Rivers and let Great Rivers administer the contract?
I'm not for turning it over to Great Rivers.
No, I tend to, no matter my personal opinion on how much money we spend on stuff, I tend to like it to give it through the county, because then at least the public gets to see it.
Yeah.
So I think what you're hearing is we'll continue to do that. And if we need to send something in, we'll certainly get that done.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That sounds good. That's kind of what I thought. So.
I'd like to ask a quick question. So are any of these funds usable in as if we were going to do something with that 2.7 million? Would this be something they could put together with an overall program for the 2.7 million that you might be using? This is separate from that, isn't it?
It
I
is
think this
completely.
already identified
Can I-
where it's supposed to go.
So I'm asking a question out of turn, because I'm talking about that 2.7 million that's coming. And I wondered if this money is able to be flexible with what you do with it, so that it would be doing something more specific than going to these people. It might be going to a treatment facility in its own. If we created a mental health facility, could this be used to move over into that budget?
It's potentially, but it is really specific. So it is connected to, you have to use it for substance use disorder treatment. So has to be in formal treatment episodes. So SUD assessments, individual treatment, group treatment, inpatient treatment. It's specific to those formal treatment services. And the bulk of the funding is to serve individuals currently in a drug court program. So there's parameters to work around.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if I can just add to your question, comment on that. I've had several conversations with regards to what you're talking about, using different sources of funding
sources, yeah.
for what you're referring to. The fact that we don't have a treatment center right now is what is limiting us.
Mhm.
If we had a treatment center and let's say we had somebody who was in treatment, we could make drug court mandatory as part of their treatment. Then these funds would become available. But because we don't have one,
Mhm.
we're pretty limited on how we can use these funds. So working towards a treatment center will make a lot of these types of funds available to us because we're not, there's going to be overlap.
Good.
with those.
Okay, thank you.
So say we got into what I just listed there briefly was the most frequent services that this funding is paying for, which is outpatient treatment, both individual and group treatment, inpatient treatment, UAs, and recovery support services. So recovery support services can be things like helping an individual complete their GED so they can be more employable, for example, or if they, need some additional job skills as part of their path or on their journey to recovery or in their recovery. So it can be sort of flexible as long as it's connected to something that's going to advance them in their recovery.
And Gina, I was under the impression when I first saw this that it's just limited to people in jail, but it's actually anybody so it could be somebody on
Mhm.
house arrest, it could be somebody in drug court that's not, you know,
Yes.
in jail. So it's pretty expansive, actually. It's not just to inmates.
No, it is not. They have to be in the criminal legal system. So they most likely were in jail in the beginning, but yes, most of the clients served by this are out of jail and they've engaged in drug court and are on the drug court roster and trying to complete their drug court requirements and engaging in treatment. And this funding was really intended to support participants to complete their drug court program. And what we see a lot of times is an individual's insurance doesn't cover all of the treatment that's required through drug court. So this funding fills in that gap. So an individual isn't deciding whether they can financially continue and have to pay for treatment out of their pocket to complete drug court and meet those requirements. This funding helps to fill in that gap if they have maxed out their insurance. And I always use the example of the UAs because Medicaid will only pay for like 30 UAs a year. And if you're in drug court, you're doing 30 UAs a month, maybe, and so that adds up really quick. And the same with treatment. You can max out on treatment with your insurance, but drug court requires you to do more than that. So that's what this funding was intended for, is to help make sure that folks can complete their treatment of the treatment requirements of their drug court program.
Can they use this for the behavioral health court also? Or what's the other court that they have?
There's mental health court.
Health court.
Yes, but the individual to be eligible has to have a substance use disorder.
Okay, so there's got to be a substance
Yeah.
abuse problem.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So our last biennium contract amount was about $590,000. Have not seen an estimate for next biennium. We've heard it's sort of status quo and that this program didn't see any cuts in the state budget, but we haven't seen anything formal yet. The providers we have worked with are Columbia Wellness and Cowles Family Health Center, and then we've also allocated some funding to drug court. So I think they are receiving about $30,000 of this funding to support primarily the recovery support services piece for drug court.
And the majority of these contracts, very little, if any, money goes to administrative costs to run these programs, correct?
Yeah, this particular contract is a 10% admin cap. But it's the way the payment structure is set up with providers, it's like a fee for a service. And so their admin is considered included in the fee for the service. Yeah, and so it doesn't necessarily cover any, like, for us, we draw down on that 10% to cover our time processing invoices and doing the reporting to the state and that type of thing. But it doesn't necessarily pay for staff time in that sense. Yeah. So,
I'll ask this, and I'm assuming no, but I've been surprised before. None of this can go into restitution.
no,
It's just for treatment or UAs, or
yes. Yes.
I'm assuming that, but like I said, I've been surprised before.
Yes, good. I haven't been asked that question before.
Is full restitution part of the graduation of drug court? When we heard them talk about how much money some of those people paid back, I was impressed.
Yeah, one was $5,000.
I know a lot of the recovery support services are around employment and making sure that folks are ready, getting back out into the workforce, that type of thing. So, yeah. Okay, so more to come on that when we receive a state contract and are looking at passing some of those funds down. Any other questions on that one?
This is the one you're gonna write up that we're gonna approve, that we're gonna continue to receive the funds, right?
Yeah, I'm happy to reach out and
Well,
confirm
the
that.
form may be in the email. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it forms in the email. I'll send it over to Kelly and we pull it up and whatever we need to fill out.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Consolidated Homeless Grant. This is the last one today. So this particular grant, we see each biennium. So it's a 2-year grant. It's a combination of state funding and document recording fees returning to the county. So a portion of our local doc fees that are dedicated to housing and homelessness, we keep some, we send some back to the state. The state turns it around and sends it back to us in this grant. Not all of it, but some of it. So that's what comes in this contract. Our state contract for last year was about $8 million. The providers that we contracted with, Lower Columbia CAP and the Mediation Center, when we initially got this contract, these are the providers that we worked with. There's a bulk of the funding is specific to the Housing and Essential Needs Program, which is it's a state benefit program with a housing component. So the state determines eligibility, the local DSHS office, they determine an individual's eligibility. You have to demonstrate that you're unable to work for a period of 90 days or more due to some type of disability. So they make that determination at the state level. When that happens, then an individual may be eligible for a housing benefit. And that's the piece that we're involved in that comes through this contract. So the HIN funding that comes in this contract is specific to that piece. There's also some essential need items that can be provided to those individuals. So CAP has done that HIN piece for a number of years. So a bulk of the funding is for that specific purpose. We also saw new this last biennium was the eviction prevention funding, which we heard about more about last week. So we had a new partner, the Mediation Center, that we contracted with last biennium, and CAP helped with that as well with the rent piece. We also So this particular biennium had additional funding in it that we had never seen before. This contract, I actually went back earlier today and looked over time at how much this contract has gone up over the years. It was kind of funny to look at. I don't remember where I put that sheet, but the previous biennium, this total contract was about 4.5 million. And so then this biennium, it went up to 8. So it almost doubled. So with the addition, that the funding that came was kind of odd funding presented as like one time. It was to help with inflation. It was document recording fee backfill funding because a lot of counties were seeing a dip in their document recording fees. So there was some additional funding that came to us some partway through the biennium. And so what we started doing and started looking at doing was supporting some of our contracts with this grant funding. So we looked at our coordinated entry contracts and gave ourselves the flexibility to use this contract to fund those, which we have historically funded with just our local document recording fees. So we did that. We also looked at some of our other contracts, like with our ESS shelter, with the Phoenix House, Family Promise and Habitat. Those are contracts we saw these last year or two that we used some of this funding for to support those contracts instead of using our document recording fees for that. So we kind of saved a little there, used the contract for those things since we had this additional funding that came to us. We're not coming close to spending all of that $8 million because the funding was, we didn't know what the continuation of the funding would be. So we'll have to, as we talk about the new contract, we'll have to figure this out a little bit. But so far through April, we've spent about 4.7 million of the 8 million. So, that'll go up as we have May and June to finish out the biennium. But that's where we're at so far. So whatever we don't use just stays with the state.
Didn't I hear you? What's the expected new contract? I want to say 11, didn't you say around 11 million?
11 million.
Yeah.
Next slide, Kelly. Yeah. So this is what's come as our estimate for our new contract. 11.7 million. So we're seeing some of so we've always had the standard budget line, the HEN budget line. We've always had those in this contract. The homelessness prevention funding, they've retitled the eviction prevention to homelessness prevention. So that's what that is there. So the newer budget lines, they're called the inflationary increase, document recording fee backfill, and then emergency housing. The emergency housing is new this next biennium. We've never seen that budget line before. So this is what we anticipate. Where we're at right now in this process is waiting for, we got this estimated award chart. We anticipate a contract sometime in the next few weeks, and then we'll go from there. Like I said, with all of this additional funding, there may be some more conversations to be had about what we want to do here. I would probably want to move forward with contracts for the programs that we are already engaged with, like for our HEN program and the mediation center and those ones that we have done. So a pass through with CAP and the mediation center, I would probably look to do those as soon as we get the contract, but then more conversation about the remainder of the funding. So we also don't yet know, I know they're updating their program guidelines. I don't know when we'll see those, if they'll come with the contract or if they'll issue them July 1st. So I don't know what that piece looks like, if there'll be changes to the program guidelines, that helps us determine what we can do with the funding, what that looks like. So there's,
They're gonna have to give you some guidelines on a couple of these that we haven't seen before.
yes. Yeah, and it's changed. When it came to us last biennium, there was some specific language about using it, like the inflationary increase funding. It was specific to like, increasing staff salaries and things like that. And we kind of pumped the brakes to, we don't know if this is continuing or not. And so we didn't want to get into supporting that type of thing with not knowing if it would continue or what that looks like. What we've seen initially with the award chart, we got some direction that is sort of lumping all of those categories together, saying you can use it for any allowable activity that's in our, like what we would do with our standard funding, which would be shelter, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, that type of thing. So they have sort of changed a little bit their guidance on what we could use the funding for, so.
There's definite wisdom in your strategy, I think, for your approach to this.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. We try to make sure if we're going to allocate funding, that we know what path it's going on moving forward. So
Is there any funding that includes some mental health treatment related to homelessness, addiction, and so forth? What is HEN? I missed that. HEN? The category?
that stands for Housing and Essential Needs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a state benefit program.
Would treatment be an essential need? Yeah, just thinking.
They often actually, in the HEN program, the state often will require that individuals access treatment as part of being able to continue to receive the benefit. So, sort of. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay,
that's what I'll leave you with today.
yeah. Anything else? Anything else from us? Appreciate your time.
Yes, thank
We
you.
always appreciate you come over and doing that, and
Good job.
I'll mention to Kelly, or you can mention to Kelly, I think it would make a good item for Board of Health. I think it kind of fits in there with some of the stuff they're doing, so,
Sure. Yep.
yeah, it's just good information anyways. Okay,
Okay.
seeing nothing else, we will adjourn. Thanks for coming and visiting us.